Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Roar Lions Roar. I'm your host, Bill DeFilippo, joined tonight by my co-host, Matt Filipovitz. Matt, what's going on?
Bill, I turned 29 this week, and it's given me
Congratulations.
time. Thank you. It's made it to the end of my 20s pretty much here now, Bill. But I was thinking about maybe it's because I think Darian Summers put out his "How do you feel about Penn State switching to Adidas from Nike" survey in his newsletter, and I've been thinking a lot about how excited I am to see new Penn State merch. And I bring up my age of it all, Bill, because I feel like there was a point in time, like 10, 15 years ago, where Nike had like such a stranglehold on like all athletic wear. Like
Mm-hmm.
right around the time they got Major League Baseball jerseys, they had the NFL at this point. And it's very exciting now that Rule of Cool is no longer bound by that. And I'm excited to see what kind of new merch we get for Penn State here in just a couple of weeks. So feeling good, excited to talk Penn State tight ends with you today. Bill, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I am also counting down the minutes until we become an Adidas school for no reason other than like it just gives me a reason to buy some stuff. So I will
I'm excited to
be.
get some new stuff.
Although that's very difficult for me because you will be shocked to learn in Columbus, Ohio, there are not too many places that stock up on Penn State apparel. So that's not great.
My parents are going up to State College right around that time
nice.
just to get up there for the summer for a long weekend. They're staying at the new Nittany Lion Inn, which I haven't seen since it's been renovated. I would like to go see it. I'm planning on getting out for the Wisconsin games. Hopefully I can see it then. But they're going to be there right as like I think July 1 it officially goes into effect. I don't know when stores are going to be able to start
July
stocking
1, yeah.
new stuff, but they're going to be up there at the turn of the month. So I'm excited to see if they send me any pics of some new stuff from all the lovely stores along State College.
I'm not saying this because I know anything or anything like that. I would bet money that if you were to go to like the Family Clothesline or something, they have I would bet they have boxes upon boxes of Adidas merch that they just like have stashed away somewhere and they're not able to put it. Like I can't fathom that it's not going to be until June 29th that they're going to get in their shipment of merchandise. But
if you work at one of those stores downtown, let us know. I would love to hear how this process works. It's a very boring thing that I'm sure no one really cares about, but I'm fascinated by this. So RLR blog on Blue Sky, RLR blog on Twitter, Roar Lions Roar on Blue Sky. Hit us up.
Yeah. Send us a DM. We will protect your anonymity. Whatever. All right, whatever. It's not that serious. Let's talk football. Let's talk Penn State football, and let's talk as you know, if you listen to this series, we're kind of getting you through the offseason by going position by position on Penn State's roster and just talking about what the Nittany Lions have in a given room. We are more than halfway through the offense now. We started this by talking quarterbacks. We then went running backs and wide receivers. Offensive line is around the corner, and all that's left right now is tight ends. And Matt, as we've gone through this series, I think you and I were both like, quarterback, yeah, Rocco Beck's a good player, but like I don't, not going to put you.
Did you see he has a CBS ad? Did you see that?
He has a CBS ad?
I saw he had a whole thing about like him pulling out sunscreen out of just like a plastic bag. I'm like, hell yeah, dude, get the bag. It was I'll send it to you, Bill.
Remember when Drew Aller was like the only person who was in commercials for a little bit last year? That was cool. But yeah, we went through quarterback. Your quarterback, we're like, yeah, it's Rocco's a good player, but as a room, whatever. Running back, yeah, there's talent in the room, not really Big Ten proven, not too terribly much to get excited about, we don't think. Wide receiver at Penn State. We have to see it before we see anything. There are some guys we like, but who knows? Tight end, Matt, I think is going to be a little bit different because I think there are real reasons to be super optimistic about what this room is going to achieve during the 2026 season.
It's interesting, Bill. There is, technically speaking, a Power 5 program's leading pass catcher on the roster for Penn State in Ben Brahmer. Like, that is a solid building block to start this room out on. And then you factor in a guy like Andrew Rappleyea. Bill, do you think it's fair to say he probably raised his stock the most of anybody down the stretch for Penn State last year? I mean, had a touchdown, I want to say, against Rutgers, had a touchdown in the bowl game. Like, he's a guy who really came on strong towards the end of last season. And then you factor in the other guys in that room, and guys like Cooper Alexander, Gabe Burkle, the Kordovich kid. Like, there is proven talent here, as well as some young guys who I'm sure they have to be excited about, because the Penn State tight end room. And, I know it's a new guy leading that room, but still, the standard is the standard there. And I have a hard time, a guy like Andrew Rappleyea is going to let a bunch of transfers come into that room and try to take his spot. And I have a hard time believing that Ben Brahmer and company didn't come here to not get on the field. So I think it's going to be some really healthy competition. And I think this, Bill. I'm of the belief that 12 personnel is probably going to be the base personnel for Penn State, with a ton of 13 personnel in there too. So I think we're going to see a lot of these guys, and I'm excited to see how like a 6'7" frame like Brahmer fits into this offense and how he plays in the Big Ten. And I'm pumped to see Rappleyea continue to build. It's a bummer he missed spring, but that's a guy who can play football at a Big Ten level and has proven it time and time again. Like, was it before oh my God, Bill, was it Bowling Green in 2024 before that game when he tore his ACL or whatever the injury was in practice the week before? I think it was. He was a big part of that West Virginia game before that. So it's probably his third season now where he's been expected to be a pretty big part of the offense. There's just a lot to like about this room. And it feels like, Bill, for the first time, we're talking about a good amount of known commodities, which is also a very nice feeling for preview season.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I'm glad that you're starting all this conversation with Rappleyea, because I don't think it was a coincidence that he was one of the first guys that they made it a point to like announce was returning after the bowl game. I can't remember if he and that, I believe the first big dominoes were some order of him, Cooper Cousins, and Anthony Donko. I find it very interesting that they made his return such a big deal, because I think it's very telling of like how good of a football player he is, how important he was to Penn State last year, how important he should be for being a bridge between last season's team and this season's team. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys who just kind of knows what playing at Penn State is all about. And I think part of the reason that is so exciting is because there is a case to be made that at least one and potentially both of the main Iowa State guys, who are quote unquote more talented than him. But when I say that, it is not a knock on Andrew Rappleyea, who I think is a fantastic football player. I think that this room has a really interesting mix of top end talent and interesting young guys. Yep. And they're in a position where, they have kind of their three top defined guys and then three guys, quote unquote, beneath them or under them of the depth chart or whatever. And I think this is a room where this has been a priority for Penn State for years. Yep. Penn State under James Franklin placed a real emphasis on having talent at tight end. I think there might be a little bit of a difference, though, between how James Franklin viewed his tight end room and how James Franklin and his various office coordinators view their tight end room, and how Matt Campbell and Taylor Mauser might view their tight end room. Because, Matt, you mentioned playing a lot of 12 personnel and whatnot. Taylor Mauser went on to the Left Hash Call and the Play Callers Club podcast and talked a lot about his philosophy. He is the team's tight end coach. It is important to mention that in addition to the office coordinator. But it really does sound like, to me, the tight end room is going to be something that is a centerpiece of Penn State's offense in a really big way, where it's like, we have three, and then whoever is behind them, guys who we think can be stars. We are going to make it a point to take advantage of those three guys and what they can do and really maximize their abilities and have this be something that we really ride. Because, in past years of Penn State, there was the Tyler Warren year where Tyler Warren was just God for Penn State's offense. Yeah. it's not like Khalil Dinkins and Luke Reynolds were doing an insane amount of stuff on top of that. There was the Tyler Warren and Theo Johnson year where the two of them really complemented one another well. But even them, like Warren and Johnson were both like bigger wide receivers than anything.
Yeah, it's very different.
Even I think a really good similarity might be, and even then, like Brenton Strange was a nice blocker. Tyler Warren is an okay blocker at that point. Theo Johnson wasn't really a blocker. But you go back to like 2022, where they had a bunch of different archetypes of guys they can use their tight end room. I think at the very top of the tight end room, they have three guys whose skill sets complement one another absolutely beautifully. And there's going to be a lot of mix and matching to get the absolute best out of this room and therefore get the absolute best out of Penn State's offense.
And not to plug a podcast that isn't this one, but Mauser in the Play Callers Club podcast talked a lot about the evolution of football to kind of shift back to where 12 personnel is so important and is base personnel for so many teams. Like, Bill, think about the fascinating stuff the Bills do with Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. Let's talk about the Bears right now with Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland. They do a lot of very interesting stuff. The Giants just went out there and signed Isaiah Likely to pair with Theo Johnson after Theo had a fine season. The Jaguars took a tight end in the second round after Brenton Strange had a pretty decent year for them last year. Like, we're really starting to see, there's probably some other team I'm forgetting that uses two tight ends.
Well, I mean, the
Eagles did for years. Yeah.
I was going to say the most obvious one to mention here, and it is because Mauser mentioned it on the podcast, because Nate Scheelhaus, formerly on Matt Campbell's staff at Iowa State with Taylor Mauser, has since been elevated this offseason to the tight ends coach with the Rams, is the Rams, where, yeah, they have Puka Nacua, who they throw the ball to a million times. They have Devontae Adams, who's like an unbelievable touchdown threat. But you look, Colby Parkinson, Tyler Higbee, Terrence Ferguson, Davis Allen, all guys who played in a bunch of games for them last year and were productive football players for them. When you think of the Rams, especially with Matt Stafford at quarterback, Sean McVay as the head coach, you think of a reliable running game, which they have. You think of that passing game built around dynamic receivers in guys like Puka Nacua, in guys like Devontae Adams, in guys like Cooper Kupp when Cooper Kupp was there. But over the years, they have added more and more and more 12 and 13 personnel and really leaned on what they have in the tight end room. I don't think it's a coincidence that Taylor Mauser, beyond the fact that Nate Scheelhaus is on their staff, I don't think it's a coincidence that Taylor Mauser said that is something that we want to try and replicate, because, Matt, even when you say we're using a lot of tight ends, we're really relying on your tight ends, it's not necessarily meaning we are going to turn one tight end into Tyler Warren. It is, we have tight ends who can help make things easier for our quarterback, for our offensive line, for our running game, and for our wide receivers. I get the sense they're going to want to do that under this staff at Penn State.
And not even that they're going to want to do it, Bill. They have a track record of doing it. Last year on the year, Ben Brahmer led the way for Iowa State with 37 receptions. In fourth place was Gabe Burkle with 26. Solo in there with 32 and Eskilston with 30. All guys who play for Penn State. But still, that's a commitment to making two tight ends key pieces of your passing offense. Just for get it out there, Brahmer's official stats on the season: 37 receptions, 446 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Also, Bill, 1-for-1 passing for 40 yards. So who knows? Maybe that'll be fun again. Burkle, 26 catches for 302 yards and 1 touchdown. And then Cooper Alexander, 5 receptions for 47 yards and no touchdowns. And then, just for posterity's sake, on the Rappleyea side, 20 catches for 180 yards and 3 touchdowns. Bill, 9 of those catches, and oh my God, quick math, 93 of those yards came in the final 2 games against Rutgers and Clemson. So Rapp came on, like I mentioned earlier, really strong last year. But, you look around, Bill, and there is a track record with this offensive coaching staff and with a lot of these specific guys in this tight end room. And then you factor in Rapp, who I think is, I don't want to make it sound like corny, like this is like a cornball take, but for like a guy who announced that he wants to come back to Penn State so quickly, that's just like a Penn State guy through and through. And that's a guy that you want to root for and a guy that you know is going to put it all on the line for the blue and white every single Saturday. And that's a guy that you just want to root for. Like he's been through injury hell and back, and I'm excited to see him become a focal point of that offense. And I think it's going to be really important for Rocco Becht and company to have multiple reliable options. And I think a lot of those guys are plus blockers too. Like it was a good call out, Bill, to mention that Brenton Strange is probably a plus blocker. Warren, when you catch 104 balls, who cares about your blocking?
Well, Tyler, I will say Tyler Warren got a lot better as a blocker as his career went on. Yes. Earlier in his career, like he was fine.
Converted quarterback.
He could definitely block. He wasn't exactly putting guys in the dirt that early in his career with the consistency that he was as his career ended up going on.
Yeah. But I do think, though, all these guys, for how important I think we all think the run game is going to be, all these guys are going to be able to hold their own and be able to get to the second level and put a hat on a hat against some Big Ten linebackers and hopefully spring some more big runs than we saw last year. It's just I don't think this room has a Kenyon Sadiq kind of guy. This room doesn't have a Tyler Warren kind of guy. But like, I really just think that the top of this room is just going to be full of nice pieces. And I think what the Bills do, and I know maybe part of it is because they got the Joe Brady, Trace McSorley connection up there in Buffalo, the Bagula connection, there's kind of a natural connection maybe to compare those two organizations. But I think what they do with Knox, Kincaid, and then the Jackson Hawes guy they took from Georgia Tech, who had a couple touchdowns last year, I think that might be a pretty fair blueprint to try to replicate. But you're probably right. The Rams with Shieldhouse and that connection might also be some really good tape for folks to watch to maybe see what they might see from Taylor Mauser's offense on Saturdays.
I am quickly trying to do a Google search to see if I can find something close to that quote. Give me a second. I think I might have had it. Hold on. Yes. Come here. Where are we? This is great podcasting. I know.
While we have this downtime, be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already, and follow us on our social media platforms, Bill. That's called Filling Dead Air.
There we go. Chase Fisher of Penn State Nittany Lions on SI aggregated some of the quotes that they got from Mauser in that aforementioned podcast. Apparently, Mauser and Nate Shieldhouse always bouncing different ideas off of each other. Quote, the Rams got into 13 personnel a lot last year, which was awesome to see, and to be able to talk through some of that stuff was great. But those are my guys. We're always asking questions we're always asking questions and trying to ask for help. Coach Campbell went to the Patriots and hung out with Mike Vrabel with his Ohio roots. So we're a very, very curious offensive staff. We're trying to watch as much tape as we can. Everybody on our staff, every offensive coach has an NFL team that we study, a college team that we study, and high school coaches that we love talking to because they're always on the front edge of stuff. So a very, very much inspired by a lot of different NFL offenses, but that Rams connection is something I think we're going to see a decent amount of this season. And as we break this room down to the starters and the depth guys, Matt, I already kind of gave my big thought on this room, which is in Ben Brahmer, I think they essentially have three starters or three guys who will get starter-ish responsibilities. One is Andrew Rappleyea, who I think is going to be kind of that in-between, not fully a blocker, not fully a receiver type, but can do a little bit of both. In Ben Brahmer, they have a guy who he's an okay blocker. It's not the strong point. I wouldn't just straight up say that he's like a tall wide receiver who can't block at all or anything, but he is a very good, very fluid mover for a guy who clocks in at 6'7" and 250 pounds. And he's a guy who Rocco Becht has a lot of trust with, led Iowa State in receiving touchdowns last season and receptions last season, 37 receptions, 6 receiving touchdowns. And in Gabe Burkle, they have a guy who's a little bit more physical, a little bit nastier. He not nearly as fluid of a mover as Brahmer or Rappleyea, but a guy who has a really good understanding of where he has to go to catch the football and how to get an extra couple of yards after that, even if he's, not Tyreek Hill or anything out here moving after the ball. So I think they have a room that is going to work really, really well together. And talking about starters, you always, Matt, like to bring up that during the James Franklin era when they would do the pregame announcing the starters video,
it's my favorite thing ever.
They'd say like 17 guys.
17 guys started for Penn State's defense last year, I think, at one point was all the announcements. It was awesome.
I don't know if they're going to do something like that this year. If they do, I could see all of Rappleyea, Brahmer, and Burkle saying that they are starters and having a very even distribution of snaps over the course of a game.
I think that's the best way to describe it, Bill. All three of them having an even distribution of snaps, not necessarily an even distribution of production that shows up on the stat sheet. So for this intents and purposes, I'm going to say the starter is the guy who fills the stat sheet the most, and I'm going to say that's Brahmer. But that doesn't necessarily mean I think Brahmer is going to be the most important piece in that room. I could easily see it being a guy like Burkle, who is going to have a ton of blocking responsibilities, and I think can very easily be the forgotten man a lot of times. And I know he's going to be a senior already this year, which is kind of a bummer for a lot of these guys as we get to know them. They're only here for 1 year, just the nature of college football in this era and the coaching change, blah, blah, blah. I could see him being a forgotten man, similar to like what Penn State did with Tyler Warren when he was the third guy in that Brenton Strange, Theo Johnson room, and then more so what they did with Khalil Dinkins, where Dinkins was a really good blocker, and they just snuck him out from time to time. And I feel like there was a stretch there, Bill, where he had like 6 consecutive receptions that he happened to make over the course of a couple games were all touchdowns. Like, it was a hell of a run there. But yeah, Bill, I'm going to put Brahmer as maybe the most productive in terms of what you see on the stat sheet. But that doesn't mean I don't think Rappleyea can go out there and catch 20, 25 balls this season and move the sticks in important moments. We saw what an explosive playmaker he can be in the Rutgers game last year, where he had a 53-yard touchdown reception, made a guy miss in space. Again, I know he was hurt again this year, this spring, and that's always a bummer. But if they can get him healthy and if he can return to that form, I think there's just a lot of unique and exciting ways that this coaching staff, Taylor Mauser and company, can look for not cheap yardage, but get easy yardage from. And for a lot of big games for Penn State over the past couple of years, finding any yardage felt like pulling teeth. So it's nice to see that there is a route here that Mauser is comfortable calling to get Penn State to move the football efficiently week in and week out. And again, I really just truly believe, Bill, I think 12 personnel is going to be the most common formation. I think 13 personnel might be the third or fourth most common combination that we see. I really do think that there's going to be a ton of 3 guys out there together.
Yeah, they have the flexibility. What I think, and this is not just a tight end thing. This is a whole of Penn State's offense thing. I don't know if in the running back room they're in a situation where it's like, well, we got to get Quentin and James and Carson, 2 of them on the field. There were plenty of times last year and the year before that and the year before that where it was, we need to get Nick and Katron on the field together, whether they're lining up next to the quarterback, whether Nick's out wide, whatever it might be, we want to get the 2 of them on the field. Wide receiver, I don't think it's a situation where, well, we have Peter, we have Kobe, we have Lyric, we have Karan, we have Brett, we have Keith, we have Zay, we have Chase, we have Amarian. We need to find ways to get as many of those guys on the field at the same time. We need to have a lot of 4 receiver sets or 5 receiver sets or whatever. But the tight end room is the room where they can always throw an extra tight end on between Rappleyea, Brahmer, and Burkle and figure out something that works there to bring along those other rooms, take the pressure off those other rooms, and have an offense where Rocco Becht is going under center a good amount. And another thing Mauser mentioned on that podcast was he sees a lot of value in a quarterback being able to go under center and being able to, see things from that perspective, to be able to build off of play action, stuff like that. And I think with this tight end room, whether it is 11, 12, or 13 personnel, whatever it is going to end up being, I think they have guys that they can mix and match where they say like, okay, we really want to lean on our running game. Maybe a little less Ben, a little more Gabe and Andrew. Or we think we can really throw the ball on these guys. Let's get Andrew and Ben on there. Gabe we'll mix him in when guys need a breather. Or we throw all three of them out there. Or there's just there are a lot of different directions that Penn State can go in here. And that's what I think is really exciting, because it's not just a matter, Matt, of like the big picture. There's a lot of stuff that they can do. There's a lot of directions they can go in. I also think these guys are like really, really good. Like I can see a world where one of Brahmer or Rappleyea in particular, I'd probably lean towards Brahmer just because I think he'll have more production as a receiver, end up as like a first team all Big Ten tight end or something like that. And then Rappleyea and Burkle are on the second team or second or third team, whatever it is. This is a room that kind of giving away my position a little bit farther along in the podcast. We rank them among Penn State's offensive units. This is a room
I think you and I are aligned with where it's going to be.
Yeah.
I think
this is a room that mixes. They have the talent, they have the scheme, they have the coaching, they have the play caller. We are going to get a lot out of what Penn State can do with its tight end room, because this is just everything I think has the potential to really sing here.
You know what I'm excited for, Bill? And it was supposed to be delivered yesterday, my copy of this year's Phil Steele magazine. And one of my favorite things to read first in that is that Steele goes position by position and ranks the top rooms in the country. I'm dying to know where he has this Penn State tight end room, which just, as somebody who watches more of everybody every single week, as opposed to somebody like us, Bill, who's just mainly focused on Penn State and the broader Big Ten. I'm very curious to just hear what a guy whose opinion I really respect, and I love physical media. So I'm excited to get that in a little bit here, Bill, because I think this could very easily be one of the top tight end rooms, not only in the conference, but in the country. Just in terms of, like you mentioned, Bill, there's three different guys here who I think all have a path to have productive roles. And then there's three depth pieces, which we maybe don't know a ton about, but at least are intriguing prospects in and of themselves. So yeah, probably giving away the game here myself a little bit later too. But it does feel good, Bill. So many of these podcasts so far have been, here's what we think they are, here's what they were at Iowa State, blah, blah, blah. And I know there's some of that with these guys, but it's more so high-end proven production and guys who I think it's very easy to see a 6'7" matchup nightmare, his game translate between leagues very, very well, as opposed to receivers who may be more physical at different, stops, different kinds of corners. But I think what Brahmer, Burkle, and Rappleyea are going to give Penn State is going to be very, very important for a successful first campaign for Matt Campbell and Taylor Mauser.
Agreed. And to move to the depth guys, I think what's interesting here is there is a world where Finn Firmenich.
Also, shout out to him. State college kid got on scholarship. Shout out to Finn Firmenich. Correct.
Him, Brian Kordovich, Cooper Alexander, the three younger dudes in the tight end room. There's a world where they just don't play this year aside from blowouts. And that would be fine. Like a world where Rapp, Brahmer, and Burkle are, for all intents and purposes, the depth guys and the starters. Mm-hmm. But if they are, if they need to get into a situation where, I don't think it's a situation where Penn State is going to need these guys unless it is, maybe on special teams they get some opportunities. Maybe they decide, Cooper Alexander is a guy who has been in our program for a while. He's a redshirt sophomore now, so this is going to be his third year in the program. He was a nice recruit. He knows what we want. Maybe we can get him involved a little bit, or Kordovich and Firmenich, two guys who know Penn State have a really good baseline. Let's get them involved. Whatever it is, I'm not too terribly worried about the depth in this room at all. One, because I think the third guy out of Rappleyea, Brahmer, and Burkle is the third guy is the depth. And then also because I just don't see a world, barring a catastrophe, where Firmenich, Kordovich, Alexander get on the field other than blowouts, other than, we see an opportunity to get some extra reps for these young guys. It's a really good spot to be in, especially compared to some of these other rooms where we talked about, where it's like, yeah, they might have to get to their depth guys at wide receiver and running back, who knows what's going to happen there? I feel pretty confident saying that the depth is going to be Gabe Burkle in a game where it's Andrew Rappleyea and Ben Brahmer getting most of the snaps, or it's going to be Ben Brahmer in a game where it's Rappleyea or Burkle getting the snaps. Like it's a nice spot to be in.
It is. And I don't have much to offer, different from what you said, because again, Bill, it's hard to imagine a scenario where these three guys get on the field. But I do want to talk about maybe some of the institutional knowledge that has a lot of value from a guy like Kordovich and Furmanek. Two Penn, and again, every kid is different. Every season is different. But the Penn State tight end room has had a very, very healthy culture of two things. And that's sharing the production and patience. You look at what this room did. Khalil Dinkins stuck around for 5 years, and he didn't get his starting job until his senior season full-time. Tyler Warren, who by all accounts had the greatest single season outside of like Kyle Brady for a Penn State tight end, shared the load legitimately every single year before his breakout season. Theo Johnson and Brenton Strange shared that load in 2022 and 2023, and no, 2021 and 2022, excuse me. And then 2023, Warren came into the fold. And to have guys like Kordovich and Furmanek, who I know they didn't overlap with Warren, or at least Kordovich didn't, but to understand, hey, you can be productive in this room, waiting your turn. If you trust this process, you can be productive down the line. I just think that's something that's worth mentioning, just because I think that's really rare to find. And again, who knows if that will continue. But it is nice to see the fact that like Kordovich is a guy who stuck around, Furmanek, a State College kid, they clearly get it and they understand. Probably not going to have it happen for me this year. But I mean, Rapp's going to be in year 4 next. It's year 4 for him now, actually, because he redshirted his first year. And he also has the weird eligibility thing where he went to a prep school for a year. So there's that whole thing. Brahmer and Burkle are both seniors. Like, these are guys who I think are going to play in blowouts, and I hope they have expanded roles maybe as the season goes on, just to continue to get on that football field. But it's really the three-headed show here, and these depth guys hopefully get on the field every once in a while and do some things when they're out there, because it's always cool to see young guys produce.
Yeah, I'm interested particularly in Kordovich, because it's probably a good sign that he's a guy from Campbell's neck in the woods. He is from Northeast Ohio, and he's a guy that they like made a priority to retain. So I think it's probably safe to guess, we don't know anything, but safe to guess that they think like, hey, you know what, there's a potentially really good football player in here, and we want him to be part of Penn State's part. I forgot that he ended as like
4-star.
Rivals and ESPN both had him as like a top 250 or so prospect. So nice little guy to be able to bring along in the room. And you mentioned Finn Furmanek. Shout out to him for getting the scholarship. Always nice to see someone from Penn State's walk-on army get take this extra, get an honor like that.
Can I tell a quick story, Bill?
Sure.
It's not a good story because I don't remember all the details. It's mainly this guy's name. But a couple years back, Bill, a couple buddies and I rented a kickball field not far from one of my buddy's apartments on the west side of Chicago. And we had a whole bunch of people come. And this guy came who was a friend of a friend. And this guy's huge. He was 6'7" and he was from Arkansas. And he didn't play. He's like, no, my knees are kind of bad. I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, that must be hard to be that tall. I could probably look it up, Bill. Look up Iowa State tight end, Arkansas Saints, because this guy played for Iowa State under Matt Campbell from Arkansas, went to Saints minicamp for a little bit. And I was talking to him after the game, and, I'm like, oh, that, whatever, you're from Arkansas. How'd you end up at Iowa State? And he made a comment that like, oh, I just loved the staff. Like, I thought the staff was just the nicest guys. I loved playing for them. And it was just the right fit for me. So it's a terrible story without the guy's name or any information outside of that. I forget what it was.
Was his name Dylan Soner?
It might have been. Let me have my turn.
Is he a big bald guy with a beard? Yes. Okay. Yep. I'm pretty sure
that's him. Yep, that's him. So very nice guy. Yeah. Huge. Said he loved playing for Matt Campbell, and Mauser said like that's the reason he left Arkansas in that part of the country to go play for them, was because he really enjoyed his time with them. So that's a cool little anecdote that I don't think I've ever shared on the podcast before. So
yeah, that's a new one to me. Let's move on to the bit that we already kind of gave away, which is ranking Penn State's tight end room among its offensive units. As a reminder, I had quarterback at 3, running back at 4, wide receiver at 5. Matt had running back at 3, wide receiver at 4, quarterback quarterback at 5. And Matt, I think we could probably safely assume that you and I have this at the exact same spot on our list.
Yes. Should we say it in unison, Bill?
Sure.
1, 2, 3, 1. All right, nice.
I thought
nailed it.
I was like, okay, I think he's gonna count, but I think I'm just gonna be an asshole here. It worked.
Yeah, I think this is the top room in Penn State's offense simply because I think it has an incredibly high floor. I think it's got a decently high ceiling. I think it's a great mix of proven production, different ways for guys to produce, and a handful of young guys, both guys who stuck around and a guy in Cooper Alexander who followed this staff over and clearly believes in the vision. I just have a hard time believing that this room will not continue the proud tradition of Penn State tight ends being incredibly productive players on the field on Saturday. So this one felt like a pretty easy number 1 for me. I'm assuming you probably feel the same way.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think this room has the mix of a very, very high ceiling and a very, very high floor. I think, like I mentioned, I think it's possible that 2 or 3 guys get all Big Ten honors, with potential first team all Big Ten guys on here. And I just think they're going to be a focal point of the offense, both in how they are used and how they complement everything else that Penn State wants to do in the offensive side of the football. So I think it's going to be a really impressive room. I think that we're in for a really big year with Penn State's tight end room. And I'm really excited to see what they do. What I'm a lot less excited about, Matt, is what is about to happen right here.
All right, Bill, you're going to do really well in this round of Who We Play For. For those who might be tuning in for the first time, inspired by Inside the NBA's outstanding game, Who He Play For, we play Who He Play For, Penn State Transfer Edition. I give the name of a former Penn State football player who is still in college football, and Bill tells me who he played for. Bill was absolutely atrocious at the wide receiver room, which was to be expected. Bill, tight ends, I think you are going to do extremely well. By my count, Bill, there are 4 former Penn State tight ends in college football. I was not able to track down any information on if Mega Barnwell was anywhere. Could not find it. But as of right now, Bill, we'll go with 4 guys. And Bill, let's do a guy to start who left Penn State in the middle of the season last year. Was one of the few guys to leave after Franklin was fired. Wasn't really getting on the field. Bill, Joey Schlaffer, who we play for.
Did he go to Temple?
He, Bill, is on the schedule this upcoming season. He is with Coach Keeler and Temple.
There we go.
Keeler from the Lehigh Valley, which of course is Pennsylvania's strongest area.
Well, all right, I can't remember. Was there a tight end, a wide receiver who also went to Temple?
Oh man, I should know this. No, I don't think I have anybody from Temple. Quarterback Smolik did.
That's what I was thinking of. Okay.
Yeah, Smolik did. Yep. All right, Bill. Undoubtedly the most productive member of Penn State's tight end room to transfer out, Luke Reynolds, Bill. Luke Reynolds, who he played for?
He went to Virginia Tech.
He did. I think, Bill, was that more of a following Franklin move or more of a following Ty Howell move? With Howell, former Penn State tight ends coach, now the Virginia Tech offensive coordinator. Purely speculation with this question, but I'm curious what your thoughts on this are.
Probably 6 of one, half dozen of another. It's interesting because how many times last year did we say like we were James Franklin sommeliers, and we said this has notes of Mike Gesicki's second to last year or his sophomore year, because I think he went after his junior year. His sophomore year.
No, he played all 4.
Okay, then it would have been his. It would have been a sophomore.
Because he had the drop issues for 2 years before he really turned that corner. Yeah,
as a sophomore, yes. So where he just looked like he was, he was like suffering, and the offense wasn't really helping him out, and he was kind of caught up in all the nonsense as a younger guy who was supposed to have a big role. It seemed like Reynolds did that, and then he transferred to follow Franklin and Howell. So what do I know?
All right, Bill. 2 more to go. Massive recruit from Southern Lehigh, which is very important to note is not part of the Lehigh Valley, but excuse me, I used to drive through Southern Lehigh when my now wife and I were dating in college in the summer because it was between Bucks County and Northampton County. All right, Bill. Andrew Olish, Southern Lehigh's own, who he played for. For audio listeners, Bill is holding up the O for Oregon, which is correct. Bill. He is staying in the Big Ten, which is fake that Oregon's in the Big Ten. But yes, Bill, he is at the University of Oregon, replacing Kenyon Sadiq, who went to the Jets, unfortunately. I think he'll be a great player for them there, and we'll likely see him when Penn State goes to Oregon in 2027.
I vaguely remember something about like Olesh's dad being like an MGO blog poster last season.
I think so, yeah.
And really like not being happy with what his son ended up getting after what his son signed up for. So I was like, huh. Like there was that brief moment where I was like, I remember that. Did he end up going to Michigan? No, I knew it was Oregon. He and Dylan Raiola can be friends together, I guess.
All right, Bill. You're 3 for 3 right now. Can you go a perfect 4 for 4? A true freshman last season. He wore Tyler Warren's number 44. Bill, Matt Henderson, who he play for?
Old Dominion.
He does not play for Old Dominion, Bill, though, but he is in the state of Virginia
Tech.
He is at Virginia Tech. So, Bill, 3 for 4 for you with the 3 I expected you to get. You got. If you would have gotten Henderson, I would have been very impressed, considering that he did not really see the field as a true freshman. So, well done, Bill. The offensive line next week. Good luck to you. Good luck to you, brother.
No, I'm already punting on that one.
By my count, there are 7 offensive linemen who used to play at Penn State who now play elsewhere.
God,
I think you can get 3 of them, but that's a game for next week.
Okay,
that's all I got,
that will be a game for next week, which means we are at the end of this podcast. Thank you everyone for listening. Matt, do you have any final things to say before I send the people off into their week?
No, I don't really have much of anything this week. I was going to do a bit about Penn State basketball getting another transfer, but that program doesn't serve my attention just yet. So enjoy your weekend, or I hope you had a nice weekend. We're recording this a little bit early. Enjoy the summer, where I think we're at time of recording. We're like 79 days to go until the season. Don't wish any bit of summer away. Enjoy it. Get outside. Have fun.
Yeah, poor kid signing up to be part of Penn State men's basketball. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this edition of Roar Lions Roar. As always, make sure you go and subscribe wherever you go and get your podcasts. And if it's a podcasting platform that gives you the option to leave us a review, 5-star review would be very, very nice for you to do. Head over to YouTube, like and follow us over on YouTube. Watch us over there. Head into the comments and talk with anybody who shows up about Penn State football. Make sure you're following us on both Twitter and Blue Sky. And yeah, have a great rest of your week, everybody. For my co-host, Matt Filipovitz, I'm Bill DeFilippo. Take care, everyone.
Bill, here's the interesting part about this podcast is that there might be another future Penn State tight end on the roster who we had to talk about in the quarterbacks preview.